What's up, my friend? Caution before you pass this point. Lots of love and good vibes videos in this episode, so prepare to have all negative energy cast away. With that said, interesting soul, you that have joined for the first time, lots of welcome. Let me tell you what we do. My friend, we spread love to the whole world. Peace, honesty, and forgiveness, which is our message, and we spread it through reacting to videos from different humans like yourself, my friend, from different places across the whole world. Speaking of places, my friend, can you tell us where you're watching from there in the comment section? And now, my friend, all these videos, we react to them with the guidance of our Creator because we believe it's impossible to talk to the whole world without the Creator involvement. You see? Wonderful soul. So we do that, acknowledge the Creator by giving thanks always before we start our show. And before we reach to that point, we do another thing also, which is reading from a good vibes book of wisdom. And today it tells us, see to it, brothers, that none of you has a sinful heart, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God, but encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We have come to share in Christ if we hold firmly till the end the confidence we had at first. Good vibe source, that is from Hebrews 3 from 12 going down. Now let's now give thanks to our Creator, the one that has gathered us today here. You see, wonderful soul, wonderful Creator Father, King of Kings. Thank you for this day. Thank you for your child here that has joined us today. All glory and honor belong unto you. Thank you for their heart, Father. Thank you for your breath in their lives. You are wonderful, Father. Thank you for the deeds that you shall do to them, Father, and we shall be reacting to them through these videos. Guide us, Father. Give us strength. Forgive us all our sins, Father, and set this soul free of all the iniquities they may have in their lives. Reveal yourself to them, Father, also through these videos. May they see something that will help them, Father, in their lives. In Jesus' mighty name, we do pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Interesting soul. Let's dive into spreading some love and good vibes.
If you're a Christian single, waiting on marriage, or desiring marriage, the Lord gave me a word for you. If I can just give some backstory about some things that the Lord has been teaching me about my family and some things that happen in my family that I'm just now learning. And what I mean by family is just like my mom and my dad. So for the past few years, I've learned a lot about my dad who's like no longer here with us. Just to summarize, I've learned that, he wasn't the person who like I looked up to when I was a kid. Number one, like he had a lot of things that he just like had to work on that he didn't work on. And he just got married with my mom right away because God was calling him into ministry and they met at Bible college. But basically, a lot of things were like, showing up in their marriage that like he hadn't dealt with. Some of them are really horrible things that like I had no idea about that just like cause like emotional and like physical abuse in a sense. Well, they did. And I believe like these things were because of like not only, things that God needed to work in him because of like his own lack of being able to see himself in the image of God, but also from just like the wickedness of man because of our fallen nature of sin. And he was like the first generation. He was supposed to be the generational curse breaker on like my bloodline. And without getting into too many of like the stories that like he did or didn't do, which were like completely disappointing for like my family and also just like my life as like the only child who had to like be the generational curse breaker. This is your encouragement to like not be phased by not being in a relationship or not being in a marriage. You have to understand that the generation that we live in is at an all-time low in terms of like humanity being broken and completely opposite to God's original design. And so while, your prayers may be taking a long time for your marriage to like be manifest in the physical, you have to understand that God is actually protecting you from like the wickedness of man, because I do content creation aside from this. And so when I'm on the For You page on my other social media accounts, like I see like the regular For You page, and like I see some of them like being relational stuff, and just like how toxic and like how backwards like and narcissistic some of these like relationships of the world are. And so if you're praying for marriage, you have to understand that like maybe even the person that you're praying for isn't even in the kingdom of God yet. And so God is literally having to remove that wickedness, that evil part that like came from like Cain, with the story of Cain and Abel, that like wickedness of man that like came in humanity. Like God literally has to clean that out of a person. And so, in the case of like my parents' marriage, like my dad didn't get the chance to deal with that. My parents, I'm pretty sure, didn't pray before they got into the marriage. Like my grandparents were just praying for them to get married because they were good friends and they met in Bible college, without realizing that like God needed to do an inner work in the both of them. And so that lack of inner work, that lack of sanctification process or healing process, like God didn't get to do that in my dad. And so what was already dormant in his life because of sin or because of wickedness from his past, it came up in the marriage, and it caused a lot of hurt, not just in the marriage, but also like on my bloodline, like in my walk with God, in the destiny that I had to play. And so if you don't see your marriage currently being manifest, or you're impatient, you have to realize that like God's ways and thoughts are completely higher than us. And he's protecting you from getting hurt, from wasting time. And also he's actually preparing you and preparing the person that you're getting ready to marry. Why? Because if you were to get married so quickly within 1 year, say you've been praying and fasting for your marriage for 1 year. 1 year is not enough for you to grow. If you really think about it, what have you done in the past year? Have you grown like a significant amount? Chances are no. Like for me, I came back to the Lord in 2018. I slipped in 2020. It's now 2024. It's taking me years to get here. I'm not saying that it's going to take a long time for you. I'm not putting that on your marriage, but I just want you to like think about it. Have some wisdom. God has been preventing you from getting hurt, from getting married too quickly or getting into a relationship too quickly, to prevent you from, experiencing the evil or wickedness of man that he hasn't yet dealt with, because the Bible says that God is the one who can change the heart. It is God who is able to recalibrate the heart from being evil to look more like him. And you can't be in the picture while that's happening. I mean, you can, but then you're going to see that wickedness of man, which exists in almost every single human being, whether we believe it or not. That is just the fallen nature of humanity. And so while you're on the journey of waiting for your marriage promise, or this, the thing that God has promised you concerning marriage, your marital destiny, I want you to take the time to really apply wisdom, and taking this time to just like pray and fast, like for you and for your spouse, for your marriage. Why? Because fasting breaks strongholds. Fasting allows a quick work to be done in people. Fasting and prayer works. It brings deliverance. And so you want to be praying for, the person that you're going to marry to have the qualities of Christ. You're going to want to pray and fast for them to be able to die to themselves daily, because in a marriage, you're dying to yourself literally daily. It's two wills literally coming to an end and literally following God's will together. Like you have to really just not desire just like, oh my God, I'm going to be married, but really like think about like the fact that You know, there's another person here that actually needs to be healed. It's not just about you being in a relationship. And this requires a lot of wisdom and maturity to actually think about. You want to be praying for the person that you're going to marry to literally, you know, be on fire for God, to pick up their cross daily. You want to be praying for these people to like make hell tremble, that they will be like men and women whose hearts are after God, because if they're not, what are you praying for? You're just praying to, you know, have a cute little marriage that you can post on social media. I'm not saying that anything is wrong with that, but you need to be wise about the time that you're spending prior to getting married. You need to be fasting and praying for the person that you're marrying and for yourself, for your marriage. If somebody told me this when I was younger, if I hadn't fallen like astray because of what I was going through, and I was brought up in a Christian household, which I was, but like obviously my parents didn't follow the calling on their lives because of this. If somebody had told me, you know, 10 years ago to be praying for my marriage, I would have started then. I would have started praying and fasting if I was younger and knew that, you know, it was going to take time. And so I encourage you today to start praying and fasting for your marriage. Start praying and fasting for that woman or man of God, that they have those qualities of Christ, and just even ask God to pray and give you the wisdom of what qualities to pray for that person, because God knows that person. Our life is prophecy. Our life is this spirit of, God is the spirit of prophecy, but our life is prophecy. And so even the people that we marry is considered prophecy. And so I want you to come to that understanding that you should be praying for the person that you are going to marry, because you don't know what it is that they're dealing with right now. You don't know what kind of deliverance that they need, or even that you need. And so somebody literally has to pray and fast for it.
When your toddler says a new word, don't clap or cheer. I'm a speech therapist specializing in late talkers, and hear me out on this one. Excitedly clapping and cheering when a child says a new word can take your toddler out of that focused moment. It often halts the conversation, and you're less likely to get this back and forth going that we want to see. Some kids are even surprised or scared of a big response, but what I see most often is the toddler will mimic the clap or the word yay instead of repeating the new word or staying on topic, which is what we want. Now, obviously, hearing a new word is so exciting, it's hard to contain our reaction. But here's how I coach parents to respond instead. If your child makes a comment like they're just pointing something out to you, maybe like an airplane flying overhead, repeat the word back to your child with a smile and point to whatever they're talking about. This gives them positive feedback. It reinforces that you understood the word that they used and confirms that you are sharing that experience with them. Like, you also see that airplane. Wow. This increases the likelihood that your toddler will say the word again and or share something else about it, like big or loud. And if not, those are words that you can add as you talk more about the airplane. That's that conversation I'm talking about. If the word your child used is a request, like they say Nana for banana, you repeat the word back to them with a smile and follow through, within reason of course, by giving them the banana so they can learn the power of their words. How do you react when your toddler says a new word?
After seeing this video of my daughter trying to use her drill, I think it's time for me to teach you all how to use a drill. All drills have a forward and reverse button on them, and the round thing in the very front is called the chuck. You hold the chuck with your fingers, and as you go forward, the teeth close. As you go in reverse, the teeth open back up. That's to help you load drill bits and other kind of driver tools like this one you see here. It takes practice because you have to hold the bit and the chuck with the same hand while you use the other hand to pull the trigger to close the teeth around the bit you're loading. This drill has 2 speed settings and 15 torque settings. Torque means if you've got it set at 1, you might be able to put a little tiny screw in. If you've got it set at 15, you're going to be able to drive a big fatty screw in. To be safe, you really need to hold down or clamp down whatever whatever it is you're working on, otherwise it's going to spin around like it did on my daughter. The other mistake I see beginners make is they don't hold the drill bit straight down inside the head of the screw, and that causes it to strip out or spin around, makes an awful racket, eats up your bits really fast too. The correct technique is to keep your drill bit and your screw lined up until it gets started, using light pressure at first, then applying more and more pressure the deeper the screw goes down. This is a Phillips head screw and the bit that goes in it, and I am not a fan of this screw because it's so easy to strip out when you're trying to put in. I instead like to use these construction screws because they have a 6-sided tip on them, holds a lot better. And the last thing is, always make sure your battery is charged up.
China has currently broken 2 world records with their drone shows that they were doing. The most recent one being in Shenzhen, which featured 10,197 drones lighting up the sky in celebration of the National Day. Now, this world record event took place on September 26th at Shenzhen Bay Park, and it set a new Guinness World Record for the largest number of drones flying simultaneously and also the largest aerial images created by drones. Now, they titled this segment Sky City, which drones were depicting tons of things in, regards to the architecture of the city, the heritage of the city, and they were paying tribute to traditions of the city. Now this was a week-long event, and each night they were doing this drone show with over 10,000 drones that are acting in unison to create these images of things across the sky. Drone swarm technology is enabling the coordination of these thousands of drones from a single computer. Now, obviously, this has wide-ranging implications as far as beyond entertainment, like potential applications in surveillance, defense, and logistics. Obviously, this could be real spooky if that was used against, say, an aircraft carrier or something like that. Now, I'm sure that countermeasures for drone swarms have been developed over the years by tons of different host nations, and I'm sure that they're getting put onto ships and other large vehicles to prevent this type of thing from being able to affect them, but it is still kind of spooky.
In China, there is a needlework technique known as hidden stitching that is considered nearly impossible to master, even after multiple demonstrations to people from other countries. This traditional craft appears simple but involves profound skills. Let's demonstrate this technique using an orange. First, the needleworker threads the needle through the orange peel, looping the thread every few inches. Then, they sew around the orange peel in circles. Once finished, a gentle pull hides the entire thread inside the peel, leaving no visible trace of stitching. This technique is so intricate that even after watching it many times, foreigners find it hard to grasp its secrets. In another demonstration, the needleworker threads a loop at a specific spot and then hides the thread completely inside the orange. This skill is now rare and almost lost. Upon close inspection, you can see the thread is carefully manipulated into small segments, as if the stitching unfolds from within. A light pull conceals the thread entirely, showcasing remarkable craftsmanship. Isn't this traditional needlework technique impressive? How would you rate the artisan's exquisite craftsmanship?
What do we have here? Looks like another ghost train. And no one's driving. This can't be good. No idea where it's coming from and no idea where it's going. Oh boy.
People are reading documents, they think it's English, but it isn't.
What's the four corners rule?
Now, the four corners rule means that everything within those four corners is the limitations of the contract. Now we've got to go back to English. See, people don't understand brackets and square brackets and quote marks. These are used to deceive you. Let's just talk about the square brackets. Now, if you're reading a document, then you see some square brackets and then there's some wording in there. What that means is the writing in between those square brackets is not written by the original author of that document. Therefore, it is off the paper. It's not part of the original document. And those 4 brackets is the 4 corners rule. Now, if you look at, say, a debt collector's letter, they are full of boxes. That's the square brackets. That's the 4 corners rule. This is how they get away with it. They get away with lying to you, but not lying. So in their eyes, it's not fraud. In their eyes, because you can't read and you made the assumption that meant you have to pay that amount, that's your fault. So in their eyes, they're not lying. Anything in a box, 4 corners rule, is off the paper. If a debt collector is trying to contact you, they'll put the value of that inside a box. In their eyes, they're not asking you to pay them. Because, oh no, we didn't put that on the paper, we put it in a box. But you were too stupid to know that, and you've accepted the payment and you make the payment.
I was sitting in a cafe having a coffee and a man sat next to me. No problem. He seemed nice, cute. We were having good conversation. I was like, all right. Universe, everything's seemingly fine. And then unprovoked, he says, are you 39? Are you 39? I said, that's a very specific question to ask. And he says, well, I can tell you haven't gotten any Botox or filler yet like all the other girls. And he says, please don't get Botox or fillers like all the other girls. Even though you are getting those fine lines and wrinkles already. I said, am I? He said, yes, and the only reason you have those right now is because you're just dehydrated. Your skin is just dehydrated. You're probably really dry right now. And I said, that's just amazing because it's like you're a psychic, or better yet, actually a master manifester, because as soon as you said it, it's like you created it. Like as soon as you said it, I was like, wow, I don't know what I was before, but right now I am so dry right now. Like poof, right into existence. And that's a special skill.
What's the hardest concept in chemistry that will destroy a little layman's mind? The atom. You know, you have the regular structure of an atom. So you've got the neutrons and the protons in the nucleus. And then you have electrons going around in shells, different energy levels around the outside. That is not right. That's not real. You can't visualize what an atom looks like because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which is you can never know where an electron is or its momentum at the same time. You can know one or the other. So there is a piece of science that we got taught in quantum mechanics. It's the double slit experiment, and they shoot electrons through 2 slits. When they weren't observed by a detector, because obviously you can't see them with your eyes, they would come out in pattern, as in they were going through like a wave would, a small gap. And when they were observed, they would come through in 2 straight lines, like as they were just particles moving through. For some reason, which we don't know, when observed, an electron or a very small particle collapses a waveform, and it either becomes, it's a 50-50 chance, a particle or a wave. And when they're unobserved or they're just moving around, they're in their own thing. They're in something called wave-particle duality, which is where they're both at the same time, which is why you have these wave functions to describe where an electron could be. They could be a particle or a wave, and that's why you can't know its momentum and its location at one time.
Your feet can tell you a lot about your internal health. If you have swelling in your feet, it's a blood sugar problem, possibly type 2 diabetes. When you itch on the bottom of your feet, this could be a liver problem. Toenail fungus is an imbalance between the good and bad bacteria. Pain in the bottom of your foot is plantar fasciitis, which indicates a severe vitamin D deficiency. Cramping in your calves, especially while asleep, indicates a severe magnesium deficiency. Numbness in your toes is a vitamin B1 deficiency. And cracked heels is a vitamin B2 deficiency.
There's 2 things you're going to learn from this video. Number 1, this is called a leapfrog crawl. And number 2, even babies know that air travel is much faster than ground travel.
So scientists have found a group of people they call the X group, the haplo group. They did a study and are trying to trace back all the lineages all the way across the Bering Strait thousands and thousands of years ago. They took all the DNA, they took a bunch of DNA from all the indigenous American Indian tribes. They took the DNA from the European people, Middle Eastern people, all over, and to trace back their lineages, right? All the way back. They had haplogroup A, B, C, D. I think it was 4 groups. There's 4 groups, and they were able to, getting everybody, finding out that this group was related to this group, so they was able to connect everybody and how they all came from Bering Strait. But then they found 2.5% of all those people, thousands of people that they got DNA from, had no connection whatsoever to any of the other people, any other groups, because they all fell into one of those 4 groups in connection with their DNA and everything. They found DNA that matched none of these groups, and they didn't know what to do. This is facts, okay? This is facts. They had no other option but to call it the X group, the haplogroup, because the other 4 were called haplogroups, you know. They didn't know what to do, so they started trying to research and find out where this DNA came from. So that 2.5% all were connected together, though, because they'd had the DNA from, some of these people came from Middle East, some of these people came from Northern Europe or European, some of them came from American indigenous people, from all over the world, okay? From all over the world, 2.5% of the people were absolutely different than the rest of everybody on this planet. But they were of all different nationalities, different connections. They was like, uh-oh, we don't know what to do. They still don't know where these people came from. They don't know where the DNA came from. They don't know how, they cannot track it back to the Bering Strait. So they've come up with this conclusion, straight up came up with the conclusion that these people, this DNA that they have in them, doesn't come from this planet. This is not me just making this up. They're saying it. They're just not saying it. It's in the information. You gotta go look for it, find it. Now, the History Channel talks about it, and they admit the scientists have no clue. When you've got scientists from Harvard, from the biggest universities, some of the most intelligent minds, after all the research and the DNA and all that, they still don't know what the heck's going on, because they can research people all the way back to the Ice Age, but they can't figure out where these people came from. Then they started connecting the dots. Wait a minute. These same group of people have DNA from something the Smithsonian has. So they started figuring something out. Well, there is a lost civilization, they said, that mentions in the Bible. And they said it, they straight out said it. I didn't say it. They said Nephilim and the Watchers. They just come out and say it because they've done everything in their power to come up with where this came from. This DNA came from, where these people came from. And it's the DNA. Okay? Listen, it's the DNA. It's not the people that just got planted here. It's DNA that was injected or bred or something, hybrids into 2.5% of the population. So they've come up with, it's got to be the Nephilim. It's got to be that group of people, because that's the only group of people that they have documentation from, carbon dated copies of records stating that this being, these entities, these creations of humans and fallen watchers existed. So then they started doing more research about, went back to find where was something found. They want evidence. They want archaeological evidence. And then they found, Smithsonian, they busted the Smithsonian. No, this is on Ancient Aliens. They even come out and they went and got the records themselves. And they're just like, not happy that Smithsonian hid this from people for so long. Smithsonian dug up in West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia, 10 Nephilim giant bone bodies. They measured them 8 feet tall. 8 feet tall. Measure 8 feet tall. Imagine a human being 8 feet tall that's healthy and strong and stuff. Imagine what they can lift and what they can do. And they're wondering how people did the movement of stones and stuff. Well, these are considered small in comparison to how big they believe that they were, but because of the DNA being diluted, they kind of got smaller, but they still had DNA in them, Nephilim DNA. They found 10 of these bodies, full skeletal bodies. They hid them. They hid them from the American people. The information's out there now. This isn't the only place they found them. They found some in Springfield, Ohio. Go figure, the place where they swear the dogs and cats are being eaten. Who knows? You have no idea. I'm telling you, there's no coincidence in the stuff that's going on our planet right now. They found these giant Nephilim bones all over the planet. It's all over the planet. Now you can't deny it because the truth is out there. So they got all that information, and they're going. But they truly believe, they have come to their conclusion. This is what that 2.5 population, that DNA that they cannot connect to anything else, is those people, those things, those creation, whatever. Okay. Now they go even further and go, okay, here's another odd thing, because they scientists are intelligent. They love to figure things out. I mean, they're OCD. I work with a bunch of them. I love to do research. I'm OCD. I will keep digging and trying to connect the dots until you come up with, wait a minute, there's no coincidences. Then they go to the region of Basque. It's an area between mountains between France and Spain. Mountains. Okay, and it's a big area. Small little town, but it's a big area. Mountains and stuff where things can hide. Nephilim can hide between France and Spain, where some of these people that they found, the DNA did not make any sense. It's here. 35% of the population of Basque, just of that population, the heritage of those people there, not people that came from other places and came over there, but people that were originated from there, 35% of them have Rh negative blood. That's a lot. That's almost half that have Rh negative blood. When you take into consideration only 15% of the whole world population has that, there's something going on here in Basque. Okay? Then they found out that those people are a lot of those people that are part of the 2.5 population of DNA they can't make no sense of. So they're saying, well, this doesn't make any sense. And they started doing more research, find out, the Rh negative people have lower than normal blood pressure, lower than normal heart rate, and a lot of them have an extra vertebrae in their back. Where did that come from? They're doing research right now. They've got multiple programs in the government where they're doing research trying to figure this out, because they are absolutely they're wanting to find where this came from. I know they know where it comes. They know where it comes from. They already busted it out there. Nephilim, fallen angels, and by means of you having this does not make you not able to be born again, saved, or go to heaven. That's just a DNA thing. Now the scientists they've done everything they could to figure out where these people come from. So they said, well, the Rh negative, where the Rh negative come from? They can't find out where that came from. No way, no how. They've tried. Okay, they said this Rh negative hadn't even come into existence. None of this until the colonization. It couldn't have been until the colonization of America. So the scientists go, so they came from somewhere. So they started going outside of America and looking around and trying to connect way in the past. There was never, they took the DNA of these people. There's no connection to any of them come from Middle East, any of them coming from any other country but Northern Europe. So the Rh negative people, aside from the 2.5% of the people with DNA that they can't figure out came from, and now that population they can be blue. It doesn't matter what your color of your eyes are. It doesn't matter what your Rh negative factor is, whether it's positive or negative. You can be either or. None of that matters, because they got the DNA from all nationalities and all manner of people.